So here's a short story about a guy who, after like 30 years of marriage, out of nowhere, actually before the 30th anniversary, his wife announced that she wants to split up and get a divorce. And real quickly, upon reflecting upon the situation in the last 30 years, this guy is realizing this is the best thing that ever could happen to him. Titled, After 30 Years, Now Separated. He says, so back in March, my soon-to-be ex-wife announced that she was considering a split. This took place maybe 10 days before our 30th anniversary, and of course, occurred while I was out of town for work. She didn't have the courage to face me, but delivered this message while I was 600 miles away. Of course, she was an emotional mess when I got back and left things as is, until I confronted her a few weeks later. Talk about no accountability. She's an emotional mess. He's away on business. He spent 30 years with the harpy, putting up a lot of crap, as you're about to find out. And she breaks up with him basically by text or whatever, and he comes back and she's the emotional mess? Okay, woe is her. Of course, things festered in her post-menopausal brain until early June when she dropped a concise, I'm leaving this marriage speech. I realized that it was happening and jumped on that roller coaster that is the initial shock mourning period. Racing thoughts, lack of focus, and an overall unease as to what was happening to me. Yeah, his whole 30 years of his life has been with her, and that it kind of made him who he is. He's in shock. Even though, well, you're going to see when he realizes the big picture here, how good that is. Eventually, the hope of maybe pulling a rabbit out of my hat started to dawn on me. Soon-to-be ex-wife was talking about a period of 6 months complaining about the same thing she always complained about. I moved into the spare bedroom and thus began the 2 months of living in a semi-separated state of cohabitation. It was uncomfortable and awkward, and she just kept triggering off any little thing I did or said. Well, of course, because that's what they do. Because this guy is the big bad guy here. I mean, frankly, she should leave. But they're both in the same house. Eventually, it became apparent that we needed more space between us. We discussed it and settled on me staying in the house and her moving out with the cat to a nearby apartment. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, that's too bad the cat's leaving, but send the bitch packing. The move went quickly and seamlessly with us emptying the guest room of all its furniture and her picking and pulling the things that she wanted to use at the apartment. I got her settled in and made sure the cat was okay and drove back to my empty house for the first night alone in a long time. Freedom. Think of Mel Gibson in Braveheart with his freedom scream. And then somebody can throw a fucking sword into the battlefield. Well, that's when it dawned on me. The empty house was no different than having a significant other that is distant, disconnected, and avoidant. She always disappeared after dinner to watch TV in the bedroom, so being alone was the same. Coping with her binge drinking, and late nights out was much easier since I'm now not directly involved with anything she plans or does. Making dinner was easier since I didn't have to take all her quirky requirements into account. So him being alone isn't that different because they were always never together. And she was an excessive drinker and a pain in the ass. I could feed and walk the dog when I wanted. No cat to wake me up at 4:30 in the morning to try and get me to feed it. I pretty much settled in and watched the shows that I wanted, read when I felt like it, and turned out the light without having to cope with my soon-to-be ex phone glowing until after midnight every night. Every bachelor watching this is like, yep, that's the good life. You do what you want when you want. But here's the thing. A real fucking man would go to bed when he wants to. He would tell her to turn off your fucking phone so your light isn't bothering me. He would say, honey, I love the cat, but you know what? The cat is going to be downstairs for the evening. I'm going to close the door so that Felix, the fucking cat, isn't walking on my face at 4:30 in the morning, amongst many other things. And if you don't like my cooking, get your own fucking food. But anyhow, one step at a time. Even better, no alarm with snooze for the first 45 minutes of every morning. I get up and jump in the shower and get going when I need to. We were living apart, yet still married, and for some odd reason, I still had the drive and desire to reconcile with her. Even scheduling date nights, buying flowers, etc. Smack! No, why are you doing that? He's so brainwashed and so used to being with her, he's pulling that crap. Well, wake up. This happens to some guys. Then it happened. My best friend called me. I told him about the split and what had happened to date. While he was confused, he stated that he was relieved. I asked him about this, and he pointed out that in her 15 years of fighting, heartache, late nights out, drinking, the emotional affairs she had with continued contact post-discovery, the serial affairs and infidelity that had to happen, i.e. where there's smoke, there's fire, that date back to when my son, now 25 years old, was just a baby. Aha, so she was a cheater. And no doubt still is a cheater. Do you really think she's leaving this guy after 30 years and having no problem moving out to another apartment if there wasn't a replacement that she think that she's going to, get a better deal than this guy? And by the way, smack to this guy for staying with her if she was cheating in the past. But what's done is done. My friend reminded me of the anguish and pain she had put me through for almost 2 decades. He then offered to fly me out a few late nights of bourbon and venting in Tampa, which I happily accepted. Well, thank God he called me. It was my Emperor Has No Clothes moment. I need to hear it, and now I have had a constant flood of reminders and memories of unresolved issues with my soon-to-be ex-wife. I've even embraced the idea that she is now somebody else's problem. You're darn right about that, sir. She's somebody else's problem, not yours. I have to play my part for less than a month when my youngest son is getting married. Once that is done, I'll be filing all the needed paperwork and will be retaining an attorney to protect assets and financials. I have not shared with her my newfound revelations and memory. Rather, I have cut all contact with her. I feel better about the separation. I have a ton less guilt in my role being complacent and distant with her. I hope she realizes her issues with alcohol, infidelity, and the role her avoidant personality has, but that is some other guy's problem, not mine. Well, amen to that, sir. The problem is, it's just so sad this guy spent nearly 30 years with this witch, And I'm sure we can look at the situation and say him being passive and not standing up for himself caused her to treat him like shit, and this is why men need to stand up for themselves and act like a fucking man, have a spine. But still, she's a big giant a-hole. Well, she's out of the house. So when things don't work out with her Chad lover, even though she's obviously in her fucking 50s or something here, unless they got married at 18 and she's 48, like my age, then the odds are she's going to be back. And I hope like hell this guy really remembers all the misery he's been through, because a lot of guys end up getting Stockholm Syndrome. They just get so used to that life and they become so worn down, they just can't imagine a life better. And it's really a shame. And that's when having good friends like his bro or family that care to point these things out, you have to put up with this shit, And of course, that his children are now legal adults. So anyhow, guys, there's another brother who's now been finally saved, and she did him a big favor wanting a divorce, and there you go. And it's normal for him to have a roller coaster and all that, but still, he's now getting just a taste of what it's like to be a bachelor. And I wish him the best. And he joins the club, and he doesn't make the fatal mistake of doing what a lot of guys do after that, get right back into a mess like that. So anyhow, guys, if your marriage is shit, you're miserable, for God's sakes, do something about it. Your life will be infinitely better once you get through all the craziness. But I still think he should get to a lawyer right now, not wasting his time until after his son gets married and all that. And because she's going to prepare for war, he needs to prepare for war too. Good luck to him.